Hey friends, we have been working really hard on our upcoming community practice. And this one's really personal for me. I grew up in the church, for which I'm really grateful. Have been in church leadership as long as I can remember. I started working at a church when I was 19 years old, son of a pastor, yada yada. But for most of my life, until I would say my 30s, I was incredibly isolated. I was really involved in church. I was around stages all the time, but rarely, if ever, was I around tables. I was not known and loved for who I actually was. And honestly, I was, for the most part, blind to all of this. It just was not a part of my spiritual paradigm. I began to notice from reading the New Testament just how much I was missing, just how different the church kind of models that I was handed were from the types of churches I was imagining reading about in the New Testament in Corinth and Ephesus and Paul and others. And so, very slowly but surely, we began to just, follow the leading of the Spirit as we all do and experiment. It started with some good friends of mine at church who we invited to move into our neighborhood, and they ended up, through just the serendipity or sovereignty of God, being able to buy the house across the street from us. And we just started doing a weekly meal and doing life together. And then another family moved into the neighborhood, and another, and we began to just start living as a family together. And there were many iterations of this same group over, 15 years or something by the time we left Portland. And it became like family. We would call it our kinship group based on this idea from sociologists. They call it a fictive kinship group, which is where you kind of have a biological family or two that's kind of the center of gravity. And then you have friends and extended family members and neighbors and people you do life with that are not technically blood, but just kind of get grafted in, adopted in, you to each other, and you become family. So many of our favorite TV shows, we've been watching Through the Bear right now, which is essentially about a highly dysfunctional fictive kinship group where there's a few siblings at the beginning and there's some people that they're lifelong friends with to childhood. They work together, they call each other cousin, but they're not actually cousins, or uncle, but it's not actually the uncle. They're just a part of this kind of large, jangly group. Now, hopefully, the Church of Jesus will be more healthy than that group if you're watching that show. But I think that gives us a good picture of what Christian community is meant to be like. When the New Testament writers talk about family, they don't imagine a modern Western nuclear family in a single family home. They imagine kind of 30, 40, 50 people in this extended kinship group where there's aunts and uncles and cousins and coworkers and people that are all kind of just doing life together around a table. And this is such a simple vision, such a compelling vision. It's as easy as setting the table and inviting some people over. It's as easy and as difficult as beginning to bare your heart to a smaller group of people and even confess your sins. And yet it has radically revolutionized my personal life with Jesus and that of our family. We will never go back to just church attendance, period, end of story. For us, that will always be the beginning of a much larger and more in-depth expression of community. And yet, the more work I get to do with Practicing the Way, the more churches I get to visit, the more Christians I get to interact with, the more I realize that what's just normal for us, yeah, you have a Sunday gathering, but really you're around tables and all of that is actually not normative at all in the Western church. And so we're really excited to release this practice into the world, to seed this idea of family and table and joy and vulnerability and confession and staying together, these kinds of core ideas of the discipline of community. We're really excited to release this to the wider church, and it's coming your way soon.